have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God.
This is Alyssa Slotkin laying into Pete Hegseth to see just how compliant he'll be in the face of illegal orders by Trump. And of course, Hegseth scoffs at the very notion that Donald Trump would ever do something like shooting at unarmed protesters, asking, what is this based on? Yeah, what could that possibly be based on other than, this?
We're at a different spot now. He's going to finally give a direct order to deploy paratroopers into the streets of Washington, D.C., and I'm thinking with weapons and bayonets. And this would be horrible.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets of our nation's capital. That's right. Shocking.
We have seen in other countries a government use their military to shoot protesters. Right. What kind of governments are those? Well,
those are banana republics, right, or authoritarian regimes. We all remember Tiananmen Square.
But yeah, other than Trump's former defense secretary quite literally saying that Donald Trump handed down that order, I don't know where we could have possibly gotten this idea. The reality is that we already know where Pete Hegseth stands for two reasons. One is that instead of just plainly answering the question, Hegseth laughed, he mocked, he demurred, he suggested that it was an impossible hypothetical, despite the fact that it is quite literally not hypothetical. It was a real thing that Trump already tried to do at the hands of Pete Hegseth's immediate predecessor. In fact, it's so obvious that it wasn't just Slotkin asking about this either.
Do you plan to unleash this lethal force against U.S. citizens and civilians in L.A. and other cities?
Well, Senator, I would reject most of the characterization of that statement, including lethality against U.S. cities, when all of those National Guardsmen and Marines have conducted themselves with the utmost of professionalism, defending our federal agents, Americans, who deserve to be able to do their job to deport illegal immigrants after the previous administration allowed 21 million illegals to cross our border.
I am not here to listen to rhetorical responses. I would like to have a professional response that I would expect from somebody who is the Secretary of Defense.
You see how Hegseth's only option here is to filibuster because he can't answer the question plainly, because that would mean he'd have to actually confront reality, and that would be far too inconvenient. And so instead, he goes all Fox weekend anchor and starts yelling about, you guessed it, Joe Biden. Because what else would the Trump administration talk about than the people who are no longer in office? But the second reason that we know where Hegseth stands is because he is in this position expressly because he is compliant. Trump obviously recognized where he went wrong in his first term, where he hired even a few people who deferred to the Constitution over him, and he didn't like that. And he wasn't going to get himself into another situation where someone like Mike Pence would put law over loyalty to dear leader. Everyone who is in this administration is a loyalist who will put fealty to Trump above everything else, period. And of course, if you needed yet one more proof point of that, here's how he's justifying Trump's illegal move sending U.S. military members into American cities.
I want to ask you about contingency plans for the use of active duty military in other cities. Do you have such contingency plans?
Senator, I would just say we share the president's view that, as you characterized it, we are deeply disturbed and alarmed that ICE officers are being attacked while doing their job in any city in America. And so allowing National Guard or active troops under existing authorities to defend them is important.
On ICE officers, yes, but we ought to be equally alarmed by the illegal use of active duty Marines or other military. I take it from your answer that you do have contingency plans for the use of military in other cities.
We have never and will not illegally deploy troops. All have been under existing and well-established authorities to use troops to support federal law enforcement officers.
Hegseth says, quote, "We have never and will not illegally deploy troops. All have been under existing and well-established authorities." But that's what they're doing right now, as we speak, in the city that I'm broadcasting from this very second, in Los Angeles. The Marines have been deployed here under U.S. Code Title 10, Section 14206, which states that the president may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to 1. Repel an invasion of the United States by foreign nations, 2. Suppress a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or 3. Execute the laws of the United States when the president is unable to do so with regular forces. Section 14206 further states that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of those states. None of those conditions have been met. Literally none. There is no invasion into the United States, there is no rebellion against the United States, and the U.S. government has no problem executing its laws. Which is to say nothing of the fact that Newsom did not issue a request to send in the military, meaning this use of military force that's happening right this very second is illegal, in stark contrast to what Pete Hegseth is saying here. And a federal judge in California, by the way, found exactly that, which is why he issued a temporary restraining order. And of course, that was stayed by an appeals court while they rule on the merits, but the plain text of the Constitution is abundantly clear. And the fact that Hegseth is pretending otherwise goes to show that he is a rubber stamp for Trump and his illegal orders. That is why he's in that position. Trump didn't assemble a cabinet of experts. He assembled a cabinet of supplicants and yes men. They pretend they're strong, but they are there expressly because they are weak and will never stand up to Trump, no matter how many illegal orders he hands down. And Hegseth put that weakness on full display in his performance in front of the U.S. Senate today. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.